All right, if you're watching this video, that means you already have the 3 cheat sheets: the chord family cheat sheet, transposing cheat sheet, and the strum pattern cheat sheet. If you don't have those with you, there's going to be some buttons down below that you can click to download those. So make sure you have those, because in this video what I'm going to do is explain how to use them, because I know it might be a little bit complicated if you don't have some explanation. So that's what I'm going to give you here in this video. Now, my promise to you is if you apply everything that you learn here in this video and with the cheat sheets, you're going to be able to play hundreds of songs with what you learn here. Now let's go ahead and get started with the 18 chords. All right, so these 18 chords on the chord family cheat sheet are incredibly powerful, and I want to explain to you why 18 and why these particular 18. So most popular music out there is going to be written in a major diatonic scale, which has 7 notes in it. So if we take that and convert it to the rhythm guitar, where we're not playing necessarily the melody of the music, we're just playing the rhythm, we could take those 7 notes and convert them to 7 chords. So most every song that you're going to run across is going to be written within those parameters of those 7 chords. Now, the 7th chord of any scale is not very common, or it's not going to be held very long. It might show up in the melody, but because we're playing rhythm guitar, we're never going to actually go to that chord. So we can just scratch it, and that leaves us with 6 actual usable chords in each chord family. So if we can narrow down the chords to 6 chords per family, how many families are there, or how many scales are there? Well, there's going to be 12 that you can play music in, and you've got, A through G, which are 7 scales right there, but then you also have 5 sharps on top of that. So there are 12 different families that you could play in, or 12 different scales that you could play in. But with the power of the capo, we can eliminate all but 3, and that is the G, E, and C chord families. And with just those 3 in the capo, we can play in any major key without putting our capo higher than the 4th fret. And so that is why I recommend people learn the 6 chords in the G, E, and C chord families first, and that makes a total of 18 chords. Now you'll also notice that some of the chords on the chord family cheat sheet are different than maybe some of the ones you might be used to. For instance, the C add 9 in the G chord family, we're going to be using that instead of the traditional C. And let me explain why I include these variations. All music is going to be made of a combination of different chords, and so it's always best to try to learn chords as a family, because you're going to be transposing from one chord to the next a lot. And so, depending on what key you're playing the song in, it's best to be able to learn chords as a family, as a unit. And so with the C add 9 example, if we go from G to the traditional C, you can see what a big jump that is. A big change in shape, okay? Everything is changing. Every single one of my fingers is moving, and the whole shape of even my hand is moving. My wrist has to move, and everything has to move to get to that C. But instead, if we were to use the C add 9, all we need to do is take our 1st and 2nd finger and shift them each down 1 string. Okay, that is such an easier transition to make rather than the traditional C. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to play a C chord, but at the same time keep some similarities with the root of the chord that we're playing in, which is G, okay? And that's going to make transitioning so much easier, and it's also going to create a unified sound overall when all these chords are played together, because they bear those similarities with each other. Now, I get a lot of questions from people, well, can I play the traditional C instead of C add 9? Yes, you can. Any of these variations in here, the C add 9 or the E minor 7 or the D over F sharp, or even in the C chord family, the F over C, any of those that are a variation, you can replace them with the traditional way to play those chords if you want. But I include these in here if you are brand new to the guitar and you're not comfortable with any chords, then these are the chords that I recommend you learn first, because they're going to make transitioning a whole lot easier, which is a very, very big obstacle for a lot of beginners. And that's why I teach my students to start with these, because they're going to give you the most playability with the least amount of effort. And then after you get some songs under your belt and you've got some encouragement, motivation, then you can, add to your library of chords as you go. Transposing is an amazingly powerful tool, and if you don't understand how it works, I want to explain the capo to you before we jump into the cheat sheet. So let's say I'm playing a song in the key of G, and I'm using the G chord, C add 9, and D over F sharp from the chord family cheat sheet. I could play it that way, but what I could also do is use my capo put it on the first fret of the guitar, and then play the same chords, but now I'm shifted up, okay? So basically my capo is acting like the bridge of the guitar, okay? So now instead of playing here, where my first finger is on the first, second, third fret, I'm now doing the same thing, but now this is the first fret, and so we have 1, 2, 3. My fingers are still, the second finger is still on the third fret there. And so now this is my G. I'm playing the same chord, but now instead of the key of G, I'm now in the key of G sharp. Now I could keep doing the same thing. I could move the capo up another fret, and 1, 2, 3, put my second finger on that third fret there, and play the same G chord, but now I'm in the key of A. And I could do that again and again, and every time I move the capo up and play that same G, I'm in a different key. So by using the capo, one chord can become 4, 5, or 6 chords depending on how high you put it up on the fretboard. So you can begin to see the power of using a capo and how it really unlocks a lot of possibilities. So the way the transposing cheat sheet is set up is it's set up in ascending order in terms of pitch. We're going to start at the very bottom of the page on C, and we're going to go up in pitch all the way up to B, and then it repeats again, right? If you were looking at the piano, C is typically the middle of the piano, and it's going to go up in pitch, da 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 da, from C all the way up to B, and then it repeats again with C. And so that's how this transposing cheat sheet is set up visually in ascending order in terms of pitch. And it's going to cover all 12 of the possible major keys that you could play in. So let me give you an example of how you might use this. So let's say you're looking up a song you want to play online, and you find the chord chart for it, and it's in B flat. Now, trying to play that on the guitar is going to be a challenge. But what you could do instead is transpose it into one of the 3 chord families from the chord family cheat sheet, G, E, and C. So the way you would do that is you would find the B flat family or the B flat key on the cheat sheet by finding that root note, right, the B flat note, all the way on the left side. And you're going to find that, and then you're going to want to transpose it into one of the 3 chord families, G, E, or C. And the way you know which one you should do is the main chord families are going to be color-coded, okay? So G is in blue, E is in green, and C is in red. And so what you need to do is find where does the B flat fall into, what color is it in? And you'll notice that on the transposing cheat sheet, it's in blue, okay? And so what you're going to do is you're going to transpose this into the key of G, or into the G chord family. And if you look at the little number right next to B flat, you'll see G3. And what this means is that you can play in the key of B flat if you put your capo on the 3rd fret and you play with the G chord family. So if I take my capo and I put it on the 3rd fret and I play a G, that's actually the key of B flat. So let's say that song I found online in the key of B flat uses the chords B flat, E flat, and F. All I need to do is compare those to the G chord family. So B flat becomes G, E flat becomes C add 9, and F becomes D over F sharp. And so now those are the 3 chords that I'm going to use with my capo on the 3rd fret, and I'm going to be in the key of B flat, and so I can play along with the artist online if I want to, and I'll be in the right key. Now you'll notice for the 3 major chord families, G, E, and C, if you look across them, you'll notice some little numbers and letters underneath some of the chords. Like in the G chord family, the C has add 9 underneath it. And the D has over F sharp underneath it. And all that is there to let you know that those are the variations that I recommend you play. Rather than the traditional C, you could play C at 9. Now, of course, you could play the traditional C if you wanted to. And so that's why I just added the variations underneath each one of those chords so that you can choose if you want to play the traditional chord or if you want to play the variation that I recommend you play from the chord family cheat sheet. Now, another way that you could use this cheat sheet is to transpose a song into a key that's more easy for you to sing in. So let's say you're playing the song Amazing Grace in the key of G, okay, which is going to be the chords G, C add 9, and D over F sharp. Okay, and you're playing it in the key of G with the G chord family. You're not using a capo or anything, but it's too high for you to sing, okay? So you want to bring it down, but you can't go any lower, right? Because you're at the very bottom of the guitar. You're not using a capo. So in order to go down from there, what you could do is take a look at the transposing cheat sheet, and you'll notice that the next key down from G is going to be G flat or F sharp. And you can go down from there in terms of pitch. But if the song is just enough too high for you, you just want to bring it down a half step to G flat, you surely don't want to try to play the song in the key of G flat. Those are going to be some crazy chords for you. But what you can do is take a look at the transposing cheat sheet, and you can transpose the song into the E chord family, and then you could take your capo and put it on the 2nd fret, and you'll be in the key of G flat. So now instead of G, I'm going to play E. Instead of C add 9, I'm going to play A2. And instead of D over F sharp, I'm going to play B suspended. And because I have my capo on the 2nd fret, I'm actually in the key of G flat. So as you can see, there's a lot of great things you could do with this transposing cheat sheet. And once you can understand how to use it and how to use a capo as well, it's going to unlock a lot more potential for you in terms of what you can play with just a few chords. Now, I know strumming can be a huge challenge for a lot of people, and so that's why I want to simplify it down as simple as possible. We're going to start with these 3 strum patterns, and what I want you to do is just master these 3 patterns, because if you can master these 3 patterns, you're going to have hundreds of songs available to you to play with just these 3. Now, here's the thing. If you've struggled with strumming before, don't get discouraged. If you can clap your hands to your favorite song or tap your foot to it, then you can learn to strum. But we need to simplify this thing down to the very foundation, right? And master the foundations of strumming before you can then begin to try to apply it to music. So the first pattern we're going to look at is called the driving pattern. And the driving pattern is a 4-beat strum pattern. That means that we're going to have 4 beats per measure, and then the measure is going to repeat, and we're going to start back over at 1. Now that's considered 4/4 time in music. You know, if you've ever taken a music class in school and you're familiar with music or time signatures, 4/4 time is going to be the most popular time signature by far. And that's why the driving pattern should be the first one that you learn, all right? Because it's going to be in 4/4 time, or 4 beats per measure, and it's very basic. We're just going to be strumming down for each beat, okay? So if you were clapping your hands to music, typically you're clapping your hand to the beat of a song, okay? So all we're going to do here is take that, what we're doing when we're clapping to music, and we're applying it to the guitar, okay? We're going to strum once for each beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Now what we're going to do after 4 is we're going to hit the strings when we come up that time, and only that time. So again, it's going to be down, 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 up. So let me just play that for you really slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Now what you don't want to do is you don't want to have your and land on a beat. The and, your up strum, needs to land between the beats, all right? Between beat 4 and 1 of the new measure. Now, this is a mistake a lot of beginners make. They'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and, right? Where basically the and becomes another beat. And in order to make that mistake, you actually have to break the rhythm of your hand and slow your hand down in order to hit up on a beat. And that's not what you want to happen. You want your hand to always be moving in the same tempo. It's always moving at the same tempo, okay? It's never going to stop moving at that tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only difference is going to be when you move up after 4, instead of missing the strings like you've been doing, you're going to hit the strings after beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Now that's what I want you to do right now to practice this pattern. Just mute your strings. Don't try to play chords and this at the same time. You need to master the pattern, get it set to memory before you try to apply it to a song. So all you do is mute your strings and just do that pattern until you get it memorized. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Count the beats out loud like I'm doing. Once you have a handle on that, then you can try to add the dynamics. And what the dynamics are going to do, it's going to add some variety to this pattern and make it less monotonous and boring, okay? So what we're doing is we're strumming harder or more intensely on beats 1 and 3. So every other beat, we're strumming harder. On 2 and 4, we're going to be strumming softer. And for 2 and 4, when we're strumming softer, we don't even have to hit all 6 strings, okay? We can get away with just hitting 2 or 3 across the top. So once I add my dynamics, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 1. So again, remember to take your practice like that and just practice the strum pattern without having any chords in it. Just mute your strings and practice that pattern. Now the second pattern we're going to look at is called the folk pattern, and this also is a 4-beat strum pattern. And we're going to have 4 down strums, just like the driving pattern, but we're going to add an up strum after beat 3 and 4. Okay, so we're going to have 2 up strums in there. So again, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. But what's really going to set this pattern apart is where the emphasis is added, okay? So remember on the driving pattern, our emphasis was on 1 and 3. We strummed harder on 1 and 3. But for this pattern, it's going to be the opposite. We're going to be strumming harder on 2 and 4 and softer on 1 and 3. In fact, for the first beat of each measure, we're just going to be plucking 1 string, which is going to be the first note of the chord. So let me give you an example. Let's use the G chord for our example. The first note of that chord is going to be the G note, which is your low E string, okay? So for beat 1 of the folk pattern, we're just going to pluck that string by itself, okay? Just for beat 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 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 1. Now, you'll want to pay attention to chords that don't use the low E string. For instance, the C add 9 in the G chord family. You need to start your strumming on the A string, not the low E string. So you need to start that strumming for the folk pattern right there, okay? And a good thing to keep in mind is to use your pinky. You can place it on the body of your guitar, and that'll act like a little anchor or a gauge to where you can always be aware of how far your hand is from the strings. The last strum pattern we're going to look at is called the swing pattern. Now this is a 3-beat strum pattern, so we're going to have 3 down strums and then an up strum after beat 3, and then it repeats. So it's very similar to the driving pattern in the sense that we have only down strums with an up strum at the end of the measure. Now similar to the folk pattern, we're also going to just pluck the first note of the chord for the first beat of each measure. So again, using G as our example, the first note of that chord is going to be the G note, that low E string. So for beat 1, I'm just going to pluck that string by itself, and then we have 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1. So again, when you're practicing this pattern, just mute your strings and practice it by itself first without any chords. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1. And get used to the strum pattern, get it set to memory before you also try to layer on top of that some chords. All right, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and that you get a lot of great use out of the cheat sheets. If you did enjoy it, I want to take a moment to tell you about the beginner course because it takes everything that we talked about today and it expands on it. In the beginner course, I go into way more detail on the 18 chords, the 3 strum patterns, and I also teach you how to practice, how to segment your practice. It's not just enough to know what to practice, but you also need to know how to practice. That's where a lot of people get tripped up, is they don't know how to practice correctly and they end up just spinning their wheels and not making any progress. So in the beginner course, I'm going to teach you how to practice correctly so that you can actually get your first song under your belt in week 1. And what that's going to do for you, it's going to be a big motivator for you to keep learning. You're also going to have the power of that simplified guitar community behind you with the private Facebook group and weekly live classes with me, where you can come in, ask any questions you want, any struggles that you might be facing, and I am there to help you and to give you live feedback. You can even demonstrate your problems that you might be having with me. whether it's for strumming or particular chords or transitions, and I will be there to help you overcome any struggles you might have. Now, if you enroll before the timer is up below, you're going to get some fast action bonuses. These are 3 special bonuses I put together just for you. The first bonus is going to be the 7-day free trial, and this is going to allow you to get a taste of the course, see if it's what you want, see if it actually is making a difference in your guitar playing, and if it doesn't, you can just cancel and you won't be charged anything. The second bonus is going to be the digital songbook, and this is a songbook of 100 popular songs that use only the 18 chords and 3 strum patterns that we went over today. And so this is a digital songbook that you can download and print out, and you can have all of these songs on hand, these chord charts. And there's also song tutorials, video tutorials of each one of these songs on my website as well. The third bonus is going to be the strumming workshop. This is a series of 5 lessons that I did with past students where I take the topic of strumming and I break it down in extreme detail, because I know strumming is a big roadblock for a lot of people. And so I want to include this bonus for you as well. So if this is something you're interested in and you are ready to finally play your favorite songs, then click on the button below and sign up now, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.